All right, watch list for, man, I got to get my days right whenever I miss a day. All right, watch list for Thursday, January 14th. It's a good time to be a day trader, guys. I don't hold anything overnight. I never do, but this is when you get scenarios like this, it makes me feel really good about it. Most of the times I feel bad about it because I see things that I would like to hold overnight, but I just won't break my rules. And a lot of times those would have been nice overnight holds when I spot them. So anyway, but we're in pretty much of a free fall here. You gotta love the SPY. If it gets down to 182, it's at 188. Actually, the way it's been going, that isn't that far to go. But if it gets down to this 182, 183, anywhere down in this area, I would really start looking for longs. I don't expect that to happen tomorrow, but that's certainly an area on the chart to watch. You also had a nice bounce back here in September off of 187-ish, and then you had that swoosh down in August. It went all the way to that 182. So you could look for a bounce around 187. Again, I don't know if it's going to get there or not. And it could open at 200 tomorrow. I have no idea, right? So anyway, but what I usually do, in some ways, I like periods like this as far as my workload in the evening. A lot of times I try to find anomalies and stocks that are standouts and stocks and charts that look great, so we can have some nice long setups. But when the market does this, a lot of stuff looks the same. So generally, when we're in a bit of a free fall, I'll zoom in a little bit here now. Generally, that is a nasty engulfing candle. When we're in a free fall like this, I generally try to just put bounce plays on my list, meaning I try to find stocks that are getting what we call downside shape change, preferably near some support. And then if you get a market bounce, I've got some individual securities to look at. All right, so keep that in mind. But let's start with NHTC, which actually is not a bounce play. I'm actually looking for follow through of this big move. I mean, you talk about a weak market and a strong stock, relative strength. You had that in NHTC today. Got a massive move, and I want to watch that one. I don't have a price. I don't know how it's going to open tomorrow, but that's a potential long. I'll be watching it on intraday basis for a long setup. Smith & Wesson, I've been watching this. I don't have the 50-day on this chart because this is generally the chart that I use for my 5-minute candles. But I'm looking at another chart that populated, and the 50-day appears to be 2028. That is the simple moving average, the 50-day simple moving average, around 2028. Remember, these the gun sales are through the roof, right? And so you had this nice gap up, and now you're back down through all this recent, this consolidation here. I think it's overdone to the downside. I really get interested if it gets near 20 because of the 50-day at 2028 and just the whole number 20. Whole numbers in and of themselves act like support and resistance, and then when you get whole numbers that are divisible by 10, even maybe more so. So I'd love to see this get down near 20 tomorrow, looking for a bounce off the 50-day. And I'll just throw Ruger, the other gun play, on watch. My charts, okay, there we go. Wow, right? This thing was about a week ago was almost 67 bucks, and now it's like 51. Again, love to see this thing get down to this 48 area, but I have no control over what it's going to do. If it gets down to 48, I really love it. But I think the gun stocks, as strong as they've been lately, and there's a story behind them, and there's record sales and record FBI background checks and so on. This is a great group, in my opinion, to look. And this is why I'm not a swing trader, because I started liking these a few days ago, back down to near recent support. And because the market's so weak, they're still falling. So, but they are, to me, a great group to look at for a potential bounce, especially if there's any kind of market bounce. All right, so that's SWHC and Ruger RGR. GoPro, again, goes on bounce watch. Now, I'm not oblivious to the fact that they reported after hours. Or I don't know if they reported. They gave preliminary numbers. The actual report, I don't think it's till February, but I don't know if that was scheduled or if it was a surprise. But they halted it after hours. It closed at 1461. As I'm talking, the after hours is still open for about another hour, and it's at 11:07. Okay, so this might do what I generally want a bounce play to do. Okay, I like it when something's weak and then getting downside shape, and then the next day you get a gap down. Obviously, we're going to get a gap down, barring any massive positive news overnight. We're going to get a gap down and open, who knows, somewhere around 11. That is a good scenario, as beaten up as this is. And I know they didn't make anybody happy with the numbers they put out, but that's a good scenario of a possible red to green in the first 10 minutes or so. It might gap down, sell off a bit, and then come back. If it does that and then comes back through the opening price, I'm going to go long, assuming everything else lines up. So that's the scenario I'm looking for on GoPro. I love a beaten up stock with a gap down, preferably initial selling on the opening minute or two, and then coming back up through its open. When I say red to green, by the way, it confuses a lot of people because a lot of people think red to green, or to, I don't want to say they think, to a lot of people, red to green means through the previous day's close. For me, maybe because I'm such an intraday wired person, right? For me, it's when the stock gets through its own opening price, okay? In other words, the daily candle at that moment, when say it opens at 11, goes down to 1070, and then comes back up through 11, the daily candle, if you can picture it, is turning green as that's happening. Doesn't mean it's going to close green, but anyway, that's one scenario. Anything could happen with GoPro though, but that's one scenario that I'd really like to see, and then I'll get a trade in that one. WMB I've had on Bounce Watch for like 3 days, and it just continues to sell. A lot of people watch my videos and they're just shaking their head going, man, this guy's a moron. Why didn't he just take these weak stocks that he had on Bounce Watch and just short them? And that's very, very clear and easy to see now. Having said that, it doesn't cost me anything to have them on watch. It's not like I went long these things and held them because I said they're going to bounce. I'm looking for intraday setups that I start my my scanning looking at daily charts, and then I look for intraday entry. So I haven't had a trade in WMB, and it's still falling. Do I wish I'd have shorted it 2 days ago and held it overnight? Of course, but I wouldn't have slept as well either. So it just goes back on Bounce Watch again. A really big volume, and this was 20. Try to be precise here. Almost it was 2668. I think 6 sessions ago, maybe 7. And then today got to 1277. It's basically been cut in half in the last week or so. That's a good candidate, all right? But remember, I'm looking for bounce plays, especially if the market bounces. USG, I believe they make sheetrock or gypsum wallboard. Is probably what the official term is, because sheetrock is, I think, the name of the actual product that a company makes. I could be wrong. Anyway, USG, pretty much straight down here. I'll pan out a little bit. It's not that hard to see that it's been grinding lower, and then boom, off a cliff. Now, again, a lot of charts look like this. I'm trying to, I try to populate a list by using certain parameters when I'm looking for bounces in stocks. And one of the watch list parameters I set up is at least 4 days down in a row, and then today down more than 5%. So if you can picture that, it looks like this, right? 4 days down in a row, and today even more of a downside switch. That's how you kind of find capitulation. Again, who knows with the SPY looking like that. So again, all I'm doing is populating potential bounce plays, all right? HTZ, another one, same thing, same story. I try to find them that are coming down into support. Now, if I pan way out here, I don't know when this was. I'm going all the way back to July of 2012, so that feels a little silly, expecting a bounce because it bounced in that area off July 2012. But HTZ, well-known company, car rental company, and really getting downside shape. You get below 10, people might start piling in saying, hey, I'd love some HTZ as a long-term play there in single digits. So that's another one on watch. ETE, again, in the energy sector, you're getting a shape change on the daily and volume. ATV, this one had relative strength today, gave some back. I actually called this in the chat room when it looked like this at 8 with a 770 stop. It triggered and really it didn't really get much volume, and then they started to pile in and ended up going through 1050. And I tweeted, I said that looks like a great call unless and until you know that I didn't even get it myself. I just didn't take it. It jumped through 8, and then I could have had a bid right there at 8, and I'm pretty sure gotten filled. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I didn't take it. I did take a flag break later, made like 600 in it, but that was a massive mover. And because of the relative strength, this is a name that they like to pile in. It's extremely low float, so I'm going to have it on watch, but I certainly don't love it now. And then FXCM, I try to populate my watch list with things that have made recent crazy moves. Let's go back to the daily real quick. So, this one, 3 sessions ago, went from 1218 to 1749. Okay, and that's in one day. Now you're a couple days lower. It's holding, this kind of the daily 20 moving average. So again, with a market bounce, and let's go to 30-minute candles. You had this move, then you've got a lower high, pretty much a retest of that lower high, and it held up. You could argue this held up pretty well on a weekday. So this is one that it doesn't cost me anything to have on a chart, but if I get maybe a narrow range tomorrow, the market takes off, and then this thing starts to break to the upside, you might get a really nice push higher. So I try to populate my list with at least one or two of those recent crazy high flyers. Everything else is a bounce play, and we'll be watching for gappers as well. All right, I'll leave it at that. All right, have a great night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.